Must be the season of the witch. Must be the season of the witch. Oh, must be the season of the witch.
Welcome everyone to an impromptu Team Yume podcast starring me, myself and I, and co-starring a couple of other lads as well.
Who are also alternate reality versions of you! Ooh!
Oh no, you can't be me. I am me. Spider-Man clones. Ah, memes. Memes
for days.
Anyway, Devar is here, and we also have a fanboy Faries. Hi, Faries.
It's lovely to see you two, by the way. It's been a while since we last podcasted together.
Yes, well, beginning of D&D streams notwithstanding.
I meant, yeah, that's why I said in this podcast sort of scenario where basically we're just here to shoot the hoop, so to speak.
Yes, and hula hoop.
By the way, I'm drinking cider, but you know, that's not gonna be much problems. Besides, sadly, the cider feels watered down. It's because I got.
That's because of the lack of monster girls.
No, I blame Sotma. I have no idea how to pronounce this because it has an accent of 2 dots over the O.
Oh, that one. I believe it's Sutma or something along those lines.
It's a Scandinavian-style cider, essentially.
Ooh, Scandinavian cider. Does that mean it's made of the blood of trolls?
No, it's made from the blood of raspberries and black blueberries, apparently.
Well,
I mean, I approve of the ingredients besides the alcohol.
well, to be honest, this particular brand of it is not exactly, you know, it doesn't have much flavor and feels like someone's watered it down slightly.
I see. You know, I have tasted one of your ciders when I went to England last year.
Yeah, that was the good stuff I bought, essentially.
Yes, it was good, it was tasty, it was sweet, and it was not even half as strong as the double-strength orange juice you served me! Double strength!
Because you told me not to put any water in it for you.
I mean, it's orange juice. How strong could it possibly be? It turns out, quite a lot. You people.
Yeah. Well, you see, we have 2 makes of orange juice. There's the normal orange juice, and then there's double strength.
Double strength! Yes.
Where you use less water for it.
You
use less juice and
basically the orange juice equivalent of JoJo.
Okay, so let's actually get onto the main event of what we were going to be talking about this podcast session.
Well, it's going to be a very relaxed podcast. In fact, I am not even going to bother cutting out as many flabs as we usually do in these shows. Otherwise, with Devar talking alone, it would take me about 2 hours up until this point. But no, it's going to be a bit more relaxed in that department, and more of a casual chat between friends. Between all 3 of them. Ross?
I'm still here.
Ross, is there something you want to talk about? You know, starting us off, as it were.
Well, aside from the travesty that is my my work life, at least, I have been steadily working on videos, as always. I have, like, more than a month front log still.
Yay!
It's just something to keep my sanity at this point.
Yikes.
So, in fact, one of the reasons I was like, I have time to do this is because I'm literally waiting for a video to render as we speak before I can work on anything else. So I was just watching a shitty anime by the name of Nana, 7 of 7.
It does sound pretty bad, I have to say.
It's not, like, offensively bad. It's just, like, the kind of inoffensive fluff that...
it's offensive because of how inoffensive it is.
it just is one of those shows that after you watch it, it will like immediately leave your mind, and you'll never even remember looking at it, besides a vague acknowledgement like, I watched that.
Yes. I don't remember much about it other than it kind of bored me to tears, but okay.
Yes, well, that was me with most of anime, really, at some point.
Yeah.
Speaking of which...
So, on the plus side, I did find another hilarious hentai to review.
Oh gosh.
Yes, you know, you can never go wrong with terrible hentai when it comes to comedy.
Oh, the best is when you find a terrible dub to go along with it.
Oh, yes. Listen, I do have a hentai story myself, but, well, let's just say that talking about it openly while on air, it's not ideal. I'm actually legitimately fearful that the mere mentioning of the plot of this particular porno will get me in trouble with the law.
Oh gosh.
It's really that bad. Yes, maybe I'll tell you after we're done podcasting, but you will never get me to talk about it. You will know later on, but not while we're on air. I'm sorry, everybody. I am basically blue balling every one of you, but...
That's fine. Just in case, like, someone that actually, like, follows me on a regular basis, besides ICPal, is going to watch this.
Don't worry. I don't even know the title of it, so nobody will find it.
Good. No, but I was just saying, so, a little under a year ago, maybe like 8 months ago, I reviewed a hentai called A Time to Screw. And
oh, yes.
It had one of the most hilarious dubs I have ever seen in a hentai. I found another one like that.
Okay.
It's called The Duchess of Busty Mounds.
Oh, God.
The Duchess of Busty Mounds?
Yes.
Just the only type of title that
it's certainly a little more striking than its Japanese name, Mama Haha.
Mama Haha! Okay, that's hilarious already.
Which is also the name of True Story, the character from Samurai Showdown Nakaruru's bird.
Oh, no. That does not sound good at all.
Oh, it's objectively not a good, like, hentai, even by, like, hentai standards. It's not the worst. I think I found the worst.
Well, we will have that discussion later on, I think.
It's like one of those things that's so thoroughly unpleasant that it's not, like, it's not just repulsive because of its subject matter, it's just repulsive in, like, every single facet of it.
Yes.
Is it just as funny? Is it just as funny as mustard on the dick?
No. You see, that I could work with. Like, this is probably the only hentai that I've ever bought that I was like, no, I can't make a comedy review out of this one.
Hey, did I ever tell you about that one time I fumbled upon a porno that had invisible penises in it?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's actually fairly common.
Yes.
You told me on the bus when two women were right in front of us.
Yes, I did.
And my fiance was sat next to me.
In my defense, your fiance had headphones on her at that point.
She still heard you.
You know what? Listen, I was excited to finally meet you in real life. I couldn't contain myself. I am usually a lot more reserved in public. I can assure you, okay?
To be honest, I expected you to be reserved. I didn't expect you to basically talk right in front of two women who were sat in front of us, going like, hey, did I tell you about the invisible penis?
Come on!
Listen, okay,
You want to be more like a fairy? Of course you don't.
Wow, we put our best material right at the front of this podcast. Hentai and invisible members. Fantastic. And Ross is doing something with his hands that drives me crazy.
I currently have the fucking terrible hentai I was referring to in my hands right now because I need to rip some footage from it to do a comparison of a much better hentai that I'm about to do a review of.
I cannot believe you're going to do a comparison with a hentai that's good compared to this one.
Better. It's better.
Okay, can I hear you throw the cover box across the room?
You have to at least have the disc fucking hold on, let me take the disc out, then sure, I'll fucking throw the cover box. This thing is a piece of shit. Literally on a burnt fucking DVD-R, because that's what this company does now.
Right.
Well, isn't that lovely?
So it's a good thing that the editing is going to be more relaxed this time around. Otherwise, I would have to cut Ross's entire conversation right now because he... Okay, can you limit the relentless swearing? If you will, please.
I'm sorry, this thing is awful, but it's called, well, at least its English title is Elven Laid.
Oh yes, that one. Yes. I can assure you there is far worse out there than that.
This was just unpleasant in every conceivable way. I was astonished at how unpleasant it was.
Really, Ross? You do realize that 99% of the entire material of the genre revolves around non-consensual sex.
Yeah, very icky stuff.
Yes, I am aware that there are many nasty things. Sitting there, I'm just like, I'm sitting there doing a review, though. I'm like, okay, are the lines hilarious, or is there just so Herculean leaps in logic here that I could make fun of? Let's face it, these plots are incredibly weak, and usually they're so weak that you can just like poke holes in it without much effort. But, you know, just kind of get funny reactions out of them. But this was just thoroughly depressing to watch.
That's great.
The comparison I'm doing is for a hentai that I bought at the same time, no less, by the title of Oh My Sex Goddess.
Of course you had to buy it.
And unlike most of these, like, especially... the company that was releasing these two particular titles, they like to rip off existing anime's names even if they have no relation at all, just for the sake of, you know, having to kind of mimic what the standard porn spoof in America. Well, this is actually something that they got right, because this basically is a porn spoof of Oh My Goddess.
Oh, awesome. And by awesome, I mean the exact opposite of that. But actually, you know what? That's exactly what Oh My Goddess was missing all along. Actual sex! You know, to make it actually interesting to watch and not boring and lifeless. These two have been together for 20 years! They have never gotten past...
Kissing.
No, not even that!
Like twice.
Not even that, just holding hands. That's not even first base, that's -1 base. Wow. Okay, listen, if you guys are asexual and you still want to have a romantic relationship, that's fine. But establish that at the beginning. Otherwise, I'm going to keep coming back, hoping you do more than just holding hands. And that's never going to happen.
I had a thought in my head of Madhog basically going through the door going like, "You kissing yet?"
Yes, I am spying them from the window with giant binoculars waiting for something to happen. Oh, come on, guys! You are the worst victims of peeping Tomery I've ever seen. Peeping Tomery, I just invented a new word. I trademark it as we speak.
Basically the comparison I was trying to make, though, is that Oh My Sex Goddess does have rape in it, but it's one of... Hold on, but let me finish this.
No!
There's no good use for rape in any fictional story, but if you feel that you have to, this is probably one of the best ways I've seen, especially a hentai, implement it. All of them happen completely in dream sequences.
Oh! And so it's cheating.
Hold on. And it's basically being the subject of it is a demon that's influencing these thoughts to try to turn this guy essentially evil. Again, you probably could have written something better, but I mean, if you're going to use rape, this is probably the least egregious example I think I've ever seen.
And here I thought the worst kind of hentai I've heard of essentially was the one where a guy was pissing and he ended up getting energy that could destroy the world into his ball sack.
Oh, that one is stained, I can assure you.
Yes, I know.
Listen, can we move on from the porn? We spent the first 15 minutes of this podcast chatting about the most inconsequential, unartistic garbage we could possibly spout. I want to talk about true art. I want to talk about
Lunar Dragon Song.
Screw you, Ross.
Okay, you know, I am so glad. I'm so glad.
I'm working on a rewrite, just so you know.
I'm
literally,
so
not only is this game so mechanically just completely awful, they botched the storyline in basically every conceivable way.
Indeed.
It's almost impressive how they got nothing right.
So glad I've dropped out of that particular playthrough after the first installment. And let me tell you, that very first installment gave me a few materials, yes, for the highlight video version of that, which I would encourage you to watch it just to see the small little edits I put in there just to make things more amusing.
Yeah, I did watch it.
It didn't need a lot of help.
No, it did not. You just going crazy. No! No!
Yeah.
No!
Well, like I said, I got worse.
Yes, he did. Me and him got much worse.
Yes, but then...
Okay, let me put it this way. This is a game that has a big bad.
A main villain.
Main villain that you're supposed to fight. Like, you know, they fail to really establish any freaking animosity between the main group and him. And you don't actually fight him, ever.
Well, you do fight him once, but he beat your ass like typical boss fashion, but then you expect the game to give you the chance to beat him in the final fight. But no!
Oh,
nope. The game throws him off a fucking cliff.
Okay, so it's basically Wadanohara and the deep blue sea all over again, essentially. The main villain was established and it had a grandiose entrance and it seemed really, really threatening. And then it gets done off basically by an NPC that was equally powerful, and we are left with a non-final boss fight, essentially, with the other main villain, which really was the driving force of the plot.
Okay, but one more thing, just to show how poorly designed this plot is, okay? This is probably my...
You don't design a plot, you write a plot, Ross.
Okay, well, okay, how terribly written is that? But, okay, so there's this section of the game where basically you kill the 4 dragons that protect the chamber of the goddess.
Wait, you kill the dragons?
Yes, you kill the dragons in this game.
What?
Keep up. He kills the 4 dragons.
Even Ice School? Even Ice School? Even Ice School dies? Not Ice School! Anyone but Ice School!
But anyway, so basically, the last dragon is like, oh, by the way, with me dying, basically the evil guy can get to the chamber of reincarnation and, you know, basically turn the mortal vessel of the goddess back into the real goddess, and, you know, the human form will be lost forever. So you should probably, you know, stop him.
Question.
Okay,
why
continue.
did they need to kill the dragons?
Never explained!
What?
Well, they kind of just threw a throwaway explanation of, hey, we need this guy to be the Dragon Master in order to face the other Dragon Master, who is evil. But...
And apparently in Dragon Song, completely ignoring every other game in the franchise, the only way to become a Dragon Master is by killing all of the dragons.
You would think that becoming a Dragon Master implies something along the lines of, hey, I'm going to teach you how to ride your dragon, because riding dragons is what masters do, right? Like a horse. Or maybe you train them to do tricks like a circus, you know? Something along those lines, but no, instead you are a dragon slayer, which is a completely different thing.
Okay, so now I need to actually go into what's terrible about this section.
Let me reposition myself in my incredibly squeaky, noisy chair.
Yes, this is probably necessary.
I'm going to keep all of this in for your listening pleasure. There you go.
There are 4 continents in this world.
Yes.
Basically, the bad guys are located at this bottom desert continent. There's this central continent that
Ganondorf?
That the actual Cathedral of Althena is located in. That's where the Chamber of Rebirth supposedly would be. And then you're over in basically the jungle, South America, Amazon freaking area, and basically the main character comments like, well, I can't just walk back there in time. Like, the bad guy's gonna get to the Chamber of Rebirth before I could get there. Okay, that makes logical sense. You're halfway across the world and distance-wise much further away. Okay, so fair there. Let's go to this crazy inventor's place saying, oh, looks like he's working on an airship, but he needs a thing to complete it. Like, okay, this is like your standard like RPG plot here. However, the thing that you have to get for the airship is in a lab that's literally right next to the freaking Cathedral of Althena on the central continent. So you walk all the way to this place instead of, I don't know, going into the cathedral and just camping the fucking Chamber of Rebirth, waiting for the bad guy to show up. And then, after you get the thing, you have to walk all the way back to the other continent to give him the freaking MacGuffin to complete the airship so you can fly to the desert place that you would have been able to walk to in less time than walking back and forth between the 2 continents. What the fuck?
Yes, that sounds pretty egregious in many ways. I must say, that doesn't sound sound.
So much so that I basically, in my rewrite, axed the entire thing and the airship entirely, since it contradicts the first Lunar game, where basically there was no such thing as airships at all.
Listen, Devar, I don't know why you're putting the effort of rewriting this at all, but good luck with that. Because you see, if you were going to write a better version of Dragon Song, that takes no effort at all. But if you want to write a good version of Dragon Song, oh boy! Oh boy! That's going to be a trudge and a half.
To be honest, I actually like this sort of thing. I actually did the same thing with several RPGs. I was disappointed with storyline-wise and basically thought to myself, okay, how would I do this better, sort of thing. I know, this is how I do it, sort of thing. And this is a much more interesting result.
To be fair, like, Devar and I were just workshopping how the story could be better as we were playing through the game, but between spats of me yelling at the screen in disgust.
Oh, so it was trying to be constructive, like that. You know, this reminds me of how I tried to deal with plots I didn't like. I ended up writing a fanfiction about it. Well, it was still better than the regular storylines, so yay.
Okay, so that was... I'm still recovering. Let me put it this way. The script for that review, that part of the retrospective, is 8 pages and counting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that means there's a lot of...
The Silver Star review was barely 6 pages, and it came out to 20+ minutes.
So, yes, Lunar, Dragon Song, the bad Lunar game. I was not crazy about this whole series to begin with, but after seeing that one, after experiencing merely 3 hours of it, I might reconsider my feelings on Eternal Blue and the Silver Sun, or whatever the title
Silver
was.
Star.
The Silver Star.
The Silver Star and Eternal Blue are like decent RPGs for the time they were released, and
Well,
they're not going to set the world on fire, but they certainly would have been decent enough to, warrant an audience.
yes.
At least.
Unfortunately, they came out for home consoles that barely anyone would buy at the time.
This is why remakes happened of those two games.
They were on the PlayStation, which just happens to be like the most crowded system ever for RPGs.
Yes, well, you know what else was on the PlayStation?
Everything.
Also much more popular RPGs that pretty much stole all the spotlight.
I'm
But,
aware
I
of
mean,
that too, but still.
under English marketing, no, they stood out on a store shelf because they came in these huge boxes with tons of basically extra stuff in an era where that didn't happen in America.
Oh yes, you told me about the bewilderingly thick booklet of the game, which apparently had a hardcover,
Yes.
which must have cost more money.
True. I mean, the game still sold for a pretty standard price. I think it may have been $10 more than the $50 American price at that point. Like, if at that. So it was competitively priced. It wasn't exorbitant in any capacity.
Mm-hmm.
It got attention just because of the packaging.
Mhm.
Yeah, as per usual when it comes to marketing.
Yes, the packaging
America.
is very important. Well, back then more so than now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now every game has a freaking special edition. Some of them don't even come with the game.
Yeah.
Commentary.
And Ubisoft have
The
editions
best piece
that
of
not even
commentary is that Lunar Dragon Song is essentially a modern AAA game that was meant for microtransactions without microtransactions.
Oh.
Ooh.
And here I was going to say that Ubisoft has more special editions than that go beyond the Ultimate Edition, which isn't even the Ultimate Edition.
Oh, I know the absurdity of it, but listen, the game is like so absurdly packed with grinding. Like, you had to grind stupid quests to get money in that game, as I think I said. You had to grind so much items, like levels and everything. It feels like they're just like, you don't want to grind this one enemy for 10 hours? Let's give everything extra $2, and there you go.
You're thinking about the freemium racket specifically.
Yes. Well, that's every AAA game now, really.
Yes, because they're jumping on the mobile
That's
market.
every-
Yeah, the
Ubisoft
mobile
game.
market is a golden goose, as it were.
So, we can say that Lunar Dragon Song was very sadly progressive.
If by progressive you mean regressive, then yes.
Oh, I hate life. This world
Okay.
to blow up.
So let's
Speaking-
talk about a more cheerful manners of
Yeah,
discussions. Wait, did I say manners or matters?
Matters, I thought.
No, I said manners.
Alright.
Oh,
sure
this
about
is the most polite discussion about media we're going to have. We have such good manners of discussion.
Yeah, good manners and customs. I want to say one thing about one particular RPG fandom that I found recently.
Oh, I
my,
cannot
okay.
wait to hear all about this.
Yes. Okay, whichever one of you on the internet decided to make Chrono Trigger into a freaking musical.
Wait, what?
Oh, have you seen the Undertale musical? Speaking of which, it exists! I've seen it!
Because I'm talking about an internet video, essentially, basically.
Yes!
Has art pictures and everything, and people
Yes!
actually singing to the music. Wait,
Yes!
Same creator.
Wait, are you... It's the same person, like, called the man on the internet.
They did the same for Undertale. It might be the same person, actually. It might be the same group of people.
It is. But
I listened to the Undertale musical. It's almost 3 hours long. It's impressive.
The Chrono Trigger musical has only gotten through over half its, planned songs so far. But already, I'm enjoying it more than I should, despite its questionable decisions when it comes to phantom notes and how they decide to deal with certain aspects of the subject material and the music.
Listen.
I actually found the Persona 4 musical, too. Wonder if it's by the same
what
people.
do you mean you found the Persona 4 musical? Isn't that an officially released game in the series?
Actually, there's 3 of them now.
The dancing games.
I am so clever. My jokes about Persona.
By the way, it's probably going to shock you that I literally have no intention of buying the 2 new Persona games coming out.
No, don't worry about that. I don't judge you for it.
I will judge you for buying the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to be fair, that was more my girlfriend. I was really apprehensive about that one, honestly, but she got in hard on Persona 4, so I was just like, oh, well, okay. It was the first game in the series that released since she got into the fandom, so, we'll give it a look, and, oh god, it was fucking awful.
Yes, I know it was awful.
Anyway, Devar, please go on with your story. It's your turn.
Yes, the Chrono Trigger musical. I want to kiss the person who thought of this idea. just because it's so entertaining to see the Chrono Trigger music, but in the style of a musical, where like multiple people are singing about their experiences in the story, and I've actually linked a couple of them in the Team Yume group chat, but I'm not sure if anybody saw them because they kept getting buried by certain things. But there's this one particular one with the courtroom that I was really liking, just because the way they decided to make the song itself with the courtroom music, they have basically this back and forth with the chancellor going like, "This man is guilty," sort of thing. And then you got this soft defender of the Chrono going like, "No, he can't be guilty." And then it's all like, "No, it was definitely him. He is guilty." And then in the background you hear like a choir people saying, "Lie." It's kind of funny just because the fact that it kind of represents the atmosphere of the actual courtroom of the game without, needing the musical in the original, if you know what I mean, because the fact the entire court was against you from the beginning and you were not going to be proven innocent no matter what you did.
Yes.
So to see that done,
proving innocent in that game.
Beg your pardon, Ross.
Actually, in Chrono Trigger, you can be proving innocent in the court case.
Yes, you can. No, it's actually fairly easy.
Exactly on what you do during the
I know
festival.
It was during the festival. I knew that much.
So
don't steal the old man's lunchbox, for the love of God.
I never did that. The only mistake I made, technically, was that I basically decided, she lost her pendant. I best go grab that and give it to her.
You should have talked to her first. Oh!
I know. I got caught out by it.
Like, there's also this point where she's browsing things in the booth. And if you tried to move on, Marley would be like, "What are you doing?" However, if you return the cat to the little girl, you get positive points. Can't remember what other things you get positive.
Don't steal the lunchbox from the old man.
Yeah, obviously that's a big one.
Basically, don't run into her, let her run into you. Or if you do run into her, then don't lie about it. Also,
yes.
When she drops the pendant, the first thing you should do is ask her how she's doing, and then go grab the pendant.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when she asks you to give it back, you say yes instead of no.
Yeah, I know that. But again, it's like...
the setup is a great little kind of morality test.
Yes.
At least in theory.
It's just that
some things that you're just never going to realize that, that you had to literally wait for her to finish browsing at the booth. I think that one's a little dirty, but...
Yes,
to be honest,
but I do love the idea that Chrono Trigger was already playing around with our expectations of the genre, that we don't even question the deeply immoral things we do in said games because the games themselves had programmed us to act in a certain way. So, to see all of that just thrown into our faces, the morality of it all, that was quite innovative at the time. I always say that Chrono Trigger was Undertale before Undertale.
Yeah.
Undertale took that concept and skyrocketed it to the next level.
Uh-huh. But like I said, though, the only reason I got caught out by that is because, she was asking where her pendant was, so I just assumed that, I seen it, so I'll give it back to her because, she probably is going to be worried about that. So, I was being nice, I thought. Again, I actually did not realize that you could be proven innocent because I thought you get thrown into jail anyway.
Oh, yes, you get thrown into jail anyway, even if you're proven
Yes, because the Chancellor is corrupted and he wants you dead. Also, Chrono Trigger has a bit of a interesting leitmotif with Chancellors being kidnapped and substituted by demons.
Yes, that's a thing
yes,
that
it does.
too much.
It happens twice too many, actually.
Yes, they always get themselves trapped inside treasure chests.
I guess history is just doomed to repeat itself.
Oh, boy.
Speaking of which, I find it very interesting, actually, that no matter what era you go to in the series, whether it's in the prehistoric age with all the dinosaur, reptile enemies, the far future with the robot enemies that decide, that humans are not worth protecting and, now the robots should be in power.
Skynet, yes.
Yeah, actually, it seems like that's a leitmotif in itself where basically each era has that form of motivation going behind the enemies. So the reptiles think that humans are weak and they shouldn't live, so they're gonna take control. Then
not necessarily, because freaking Kingdom of Zeal doesn't really fit that.
Kingdom of Zeal doesn't, but I mean, it's a lot of them do that. I mean,
every era offers a different commentary about how power works, the dynamic between those in power and those below that. Which fits with the overall motif of the game, which is essentially a broader parable about man versus fate, or man versus God, whereas God is literally a alien parasite.
I'm not really judging the game for it. I'm just basically think it's interesting that basically, apparently reptiles, monsters within the middle, and the robots essentially had all the same thought process of, hey, the humans are not worth their own spit, essentially, so we'll just get rid of them, sort of thing.
Well, it's slightly different. It is slightly different in both cases, because in the prehistoric era, it is a fight, basically for the survival of the fittest, whereas in the far distant future, there is no more life, and there is nothing to fight for. Hope has died, so all that's left is for the remnants of man, which is the technology that was left, to take over the world and start anew.
Yeah.
That's the idea,
Yeah.
at least.
By the way, I just have to call out just how effective the ruined future in Chrono Trigger is.
Oh yeah,
for
because it
a
has really
16-bit
good atmosphere.
RPG, that's just, it fills you with despair.
The atmosphere is quite good in that place.
I mean, it makes you feel how desperate and hopeless the entire situation is in a way that I don't think I've ever seen a game of that era manage.
You know, aside from the narrative and the theming, and it does everything right in that department, what's really interesting and progressive about Chrono Trigger at the time is how not grindy it is. It's a game that you can actually beat in less than 30 hours, which is unheard of for a JRPG, honestly.
Actually, you can easily beat it in less than 20, especially if you don't go through a lot of the optional content.
Yes, you bring up a good point, because if you don't go for the optional content, or even if you don't bother to unlock all of the techs that the characters can do, then the game is even shorter than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I have to say that unlike most side quests and RPGs, Chrono Trigger actually does a nice job of essentially making each side quest feel meaningful for each character in some way.
Yes.
I mean, Mal has to save her father from being accused by the Chancellor. Robo has to fight his creator, and programming by said creator. It's basically full of little story arcs like that. Basically makes it worth going after, essentially. And not just because, you get cool stuff out of it, but because, you see your favorite characters having their arcs, essentially, finished.
And they are indeed favorites.
Yes, I do want to...
Although Ayla doesn't really have much of an arc, she goes fight some more dinosaurs in the future, essentially.
Okay.
I
want to do a quick thing before we completely lose the point. We very quickly moved away from it, but Chrono Cross does, unfortunately, a bit to muddy some of these dynamics, especially with the reptites.
Yeah.
So, I mean, here's how it goes down. Essentially, the only reason humanity was able to flourish, according to Chrono Cross, if you want to keep it in canon, which a lot of people don't, me, myself included, basically is saying, no, it's Lavos' influence that gave them the extra intelligence and adaptation that humans needed to basically evolve from basically Ayla's people into a modern human being.
That's
garbage. So the reptites were actually the rightful heirs of humanity, and they evolved into dragons in Chrono Cross.
Oh!
That hate humans and want everyone to fucking die.
Lovely.
Absolutely wonderful, by the way.
I do not buy in the narrative that Lavos is responsible for the way humanity evolved. I think it's more thematically apropos with Lavos being responsible for how the Earth shaped out to be, but humans getting attracted to Lavos, like in the Antiquity era, that was the result of inherent human fanaticism and the thirst for power.
Also,
assuming that Lavos is responsible for every mistake made by humanity really takes away the agency of humanity itself, and taking away the agency of humanity undermines the very idea that they are fighting for their own future.
Well, then you're gonna hate this next tidbit that Chrono Cross added.
Oh no.
There's an actual goddess of fate.
Oh.
I am never playing Chrono Cross.
That is also a computer system from the far future.
Oh my gosh.
And that's what made the gates.
Okay.
That's stupid.
Okay, that's really dumb. Okay, so I'm going to basically say...
And you don't kill Lavos at the end of Chrono Trigger.
You
He basically got sent essentially into the space between time, and so at the end of Chrono Cross, you go and fight him. It basically is the Dream Eater, essentially, from whatever it's called in the
Dream Devourer. You mean?
You know, actually, the Dream Devourer was really, really easy to beat. I was prepared for a real fight because you told me it was a really difficult boss fight, but it was so easy.
It's not a pushover for most parties. No, but it's still not the hardest fight in the game. You can win that seemingly unwinnable battle with Lavos in the when you first encounter it in Zeal, where what's supposed to kill Chrono.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just like Lavos is putting out like 700 damage a turn, and if you can tank that, you can potentially win.
All my characters are at max HP, so I think they could. If I really wanted.
But yeah, that's easily the toughest fight in the game to take.
Yeah, I'm actually going to ask, essentially, wasn't the Queen of Zeal essentially infected or influenced by Lavos in some way?
It is never really made clear.
Hell, it could be her own lust for power or psychosis, or it could be Lavos' influence.
Honestly, I like it that they left it ambiguous. Certain elements do not need to be explained. They just need to be shown to the audience and left to the interpretation of the audience. That makes it for a much more compelling narrative.
Yeah. The original thing I wanted to say was the Chrono Trigger musical by The Man on the Internet.
Oh yes, all of that. Which also made Undertale the musical, and I've seen it.
Yes. It is enjoyable, but, you know, and I would recommend listening to, because there's a lot of hard work went into it, a lot of passion from a lot of people, and there's some really decent, you know, songs in there that basically sound like as if they could have been acted out on stage.
Yes.
And I wish I could have seen that. but
overall, it's not a really good musical.
It's still decent. It's just little bits and bobs that still irk me. It's minor details. You know, it's my perfectionist nature. It kind of gets in the way of basically making me think like, I could have done it that way, or why did the singer sing it that way when the note doesn't exist?
Yes. Okay, much like the Undertale musical, which is my personal frame of reference for this discussion, the mere concept of this existing is far, far, far more impressive than the actual end product.
Well, yeah, I know. That's why I said I'm not going to... I'm actually glad it exists because it's a passion
I
project.
translated essentially.
So, but still, it's just me essentially just nitpicking essentially.
Yes,
that's all
essentially. That's also me essentially nitpicking about the way you speak essentially.
I could nitpick you essentially speaking.
Oh, I am extremely nitpickable. Don't get me wrong. I am extremely yeah, see?
Exactly.
Free ammo there, nitpicking.
But I was about to say, it's not that surprising to me. I think Chrono Trigger is generally held in high enough regard to be considered a masterpiece of the genre. I don't think anyone's going to really dispute you on that. Some might say, well, Final Fantasy VI might be a little better. I don't agree with this, but I'm just saying someone might put up an argument for something like that. But generally speaking, no one's going to say, no, Chrono Trigger was crap. Unless they're really, really
hateful
or
just dismissive of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen,
what really adds to the masterpiece status of that game is the fact that there isn't really any other JRPG that's quite like it. Not even a direct proper sequel. Chrono Cross doesn't count, obviously. So it's so unique that stands out amongst the rest. It manages to stand against the test of time.
Yeah. But
I would say it stands way better than any of the 16-bit Final Fantasy games, that's for sure.
And now Devar is going to tell us how the game is merely okay, because...
No, I'm not going to tell you it's crap. I'm just going to tell you that one thing, the one aspect, Lavos is completely overhyped.
Well, listen. Well, okay, I'm going to say this. I'm not going to dispute your opinion there, but I'll say this. Yes, if you know how to fight Lavos, it's an incredibly easy boss. I was shocked at how easy it was to beat when I replayed the game recently. But I want you to forget about all of that and go back to the very first time you saw Lavos. You met Lavos and you were ready for the final confrontation. The aura, the atmosphere, the feeling of desperate struggling, that's a feeling that is never going to go away. That's what Lavos gave me. That's what made Lavos to me the ultimate RPG boss, regardless of how easy it was. I mean, it has 3 phases, and each of those phases has a fantastic battle theme. All 3 of them.
I actually like the second one the best.
My favorite is the second one, but the third one is so urgent and fast-paced. You have to beat Lavos before he kills you.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but I actually thought the journey was a lot more interesting and more.
When you get down to it, Chrono Trigger is actually a very easy game to beat when you get down to it.
You could even call it like casual by today's standards.
It's just that for me, it's like the Batman Arkham City and Asylum games. Essentially, the journey was a lot more interesting than the actual destination. If it makes any sense to you guys,
I think that was kind of the point, because there wasn't really much in the way of surprises when you got the Lavos. I mean, essentially, you knew what you were up against from maybe a third in the game.
Well, there was one small surprise about Lavos. You keep fighting him, and the more you fight him, the more it is revealed about it. You start off with the giant hedgehog-like creature, and then you crack it open like a nut, you go inside, and there is this perfect cell look-alike with tubes waiting for you, and you think, okay, this is the real Lavos, and then you break that one down, you open it, and inside there is a spaceman with 2 probes.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is your god. Like I said, that's the beauty of the commentary and the criticism on religion.
And like I was about to say as well, is that
I will never let you say it.
there's a reason why I said that I was invested in the characters' side plots more, essentially, because that was the one part of the game I loved the most. The characters had a good dynamic. Everyone had personalities that you could like, sort of thing.
Yes, definitely. There was no one that was unlikable in the cast. It was like knowing you took one look at and like, well, I'm never using you.
Well, Magus was a bit of a jerk. Even when his arc is complete, he's still Magus.
Yes.
Yeah, because he lost his sister.
But on the other hand, he is really useful in battle if you're not going that route.
Oh, he's the best magician in the game.
Easily.
Also, I love how stupid Magus is. It sounds dismissive, but his entire plan was to reawaken Lavos so that he could defeat him himself, because in his arrogance, in his stupidity, he thought he had the power to do so. And again, that makes sense for the character to do something that idiotic. But then it doesn't seem like he learned from it at all.
Correct.
No.
And that's the only thing missing about Magus's arc, which is to say, the conclusion of his arc.
Yeah, even like the extra content that they added to DS Mode. Essentially, he is like, I found the Dream Eater! Oh god, it kicked my ass! Can you help?
Yes, that's pretty much it for Magus, isn't it?
Basically it. It's like, it has my sister! But I guess I guess you're the only one that could help me take it down or something.
Yeah.
Not that I need help or anything.
Well, he is the Vegeta of the.
He is Vegeta and Piccolo rolled into one.
Yeah, pretty much, because, Akira Toriyama and all that.
Yes, he's the character designer. Thankfully, he's not the writer, though.
No, he's not the writer, thankfully, but he.
But it does help give Chrono Trigger a lot of personality comparatively.
I'd actually would argue that this is probably one of the only few games where it doesn't feel like Akira Toriyama rehashes designs. I mean, you could make a case for Chrono looking like Goku and Megas having the face of Vegeta, but
no, they just stole Chrono for a DBZ movie afterwards. That's all.
Oh, snap!
Yeah,
honestly, more than the design, more than the character design, what really steals the show for me are the sprites themselves.
Yeah, the fantastic sprite work translation of them.
Very expressive sprites.
They are the most expressive and animated sprites of any game of the period I've ever seen. Compare that to something modern, something retro but modern, like Octopath Traveler, whereas every sprite does not have an ounce of expressivity.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be an homage to 16-bit RPGs.
Nah.
So Chrono Trigger is taking everyone to school, essentially.
Yeah. It's still the teacher after all these years.
It's a shame, but Square keeps looking back towards the early Final Fantasy games for inspiration for the kind of back to basics approach to RPGs, and they're looking in the wrong place.
Yeah, that is a shame, isn't it?
What's stopping them to make a sequel to Chrono Trigger, by the way? It was hard at the time because the game itself was lightning in a bottle. It was the combination and the collaboration between people from both Square and Enix. But now Square and Enix are the same company!
Well, actually, Chrono Trigger didn't have a lot of development from Enix. They just got Akira Toriyama, that was most known for doing the Dragon Quest character designs.
Yeah, pretty much. Essentially, it is lightning in a bottle, though. Much like...
Yes, it is extremely lightning in a bottle,
easily proves that.
In fact, if they were to actually finally do a sequel to it, everybody will be disappointed by it, because the hype for that game has been so unreal that nothing will ever live up to it.
And that soundtrack, though.
That soundtrack is something special. When I played that game, I was humming the entire time, every single track of every single screen of the game.
Chrono Trigger's soundtrack is amazing. Chrono Cross's soundtrack is better. That's about the only thing Chrono Cross has on just about any game. Is just its soundtrack is just that damn good.
It might be better, but it doesn't mean anything to me. Because it
doesn't mean anything to me either, sadly. I mean, unless Yes,
I know, Devar, I know. But.
I'm trying to think what the words are now, because if...
You're trying to say that we hold the soundtrack of Chrono Trigger in such a high regard because we played the game and it meant something for us.
Yeah. But when I remember watching this years ago when GameTrailers.com was still around, and they were doing they were doing a look at the Chrono Cross's music, and despite them saying "Oh, this music was amazing," when they let me listen to some of it, it's like, how is this amazing exactly? It sounds nice, I guess, but.
Is it good to listen on its own, though? Because a quality of the Chrono Trigger soundtrack is that I can listen just to the soundtrack without seeing the game all day long. And I have.
I've done that for Chrono Cross's soundtrack, too. I have it on my iPod that I still listen to when traveling in my car.
Maybe I should look into more of Chrono Cross's music then to see if there's some... gem that was not revealed to me.
Okay, listen, I want to say this.
Yeah.
Devar has Chrono Trigger in his collection of SNES classics. If we wanted, we could do a Let's Play of it.
Yeah, probably not, because since everyone's already done it, or it's well known and all that, but...
We'll see. I mean, I'm coming off of a massive series. I'm coming off of Lunar. I mean, I still have like 4 Lunar games to go.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, hypothetically,
Yeah.
if we wanted,
yes.
we could do it if we wanted.
Yeah. We should probably go on to the next subject of whatever we want to talk about, because...
Yes, so in the subject of games and RPGs, would you like to hear what I have been doing in the past week or so?
Leveling up your... let's see, what were you working on this week to basically level up a stat, essentially?
Oh, yes. If you don't read my tweets, it might get confusing, but essentially, I've been playing a Nippon Ichi game. Feel free to gasp in shock.
Not really.
Not gasping out.
Do gasp.
Ah.
Right, so I have not played a Nippon Ichi game since Disgaea D2. Actually. No, I think I played all of the Disgaea games at some point before 5 came out, which I had to ignore. I couldn't go back there, man. I couldn't. I just got out of it.
No, I feel you on that. I really do. Like, I have a Switch and, like, Disgaea 5 exists. I'm just like, I don't have time. I don't have life. I don't have enough life for another Disgaea game.
I played the demo of Disgaea 5, and instantly I found myself disliking the protagonists with such a passion. You wouldn't even believe it. But also, I found myself looking at the combat system, the strategy RPG, patented strategy RPG combat system of the series. This does not appeal to me anymore. And it was at that point I realized I have finally moved past it. The Disgaea series had been a chapter in my life, a long, grindy, endless chapter of my life that went up in smoke when my PlayStation 3 broke down, essentially. So it was a clean-cut separation from it, which was good. Unfortunately, I still ended up buying a Nippon Ichi game that's not Disgaea, but has similar trappings. That game in question is Labyrinth of Refrain, Coven of Dusk, which is the most video gamey title I've heard in a while. It has typical Nippon Ichi issues when it comes to the plot, whereas every ounce of potential the narrative might have and can have gets inevitably undermined by bad writing and awfully misguided characterizations. Essentially, the protagonist is the most unlikable scum of the earth you could possibly have. And even though the game eventually does give you a justification as to why said character is so unlikable, given what happened to her, it does not fix the prior problems, which is to say, the tone and the framing. If you want to have the audience invested in a character that's inherently awful and unlikable, you have to frame it correctly. You have to give something to the audience to latch on. You cannot have the protagonist abusing her young apprentice for the entire game and treat it like it is some sort of honky-dory, light-hearted comedy. That's psychological and physical abuse! That's not funny! And that's what the game does.
That was basically my impression of the familiar of Zero, honestly.
Yeah,
it's actually a recurring problem with a lot of Japanese media and anime and games, whereas an obviously abusive relationship is framed as comedy. But if it were to be framed correctly, it would be akin to a psychological horror.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, look at that episode of Gumball where that actually happened.
Yeesh.
I mean,
Gumball is brilliant, by the way.
I mean, a lot of people really disliked that episode of Gumball where that actually happened, where Gumball ended up in an abusive relationship, and he, essentially the creators basically just told the kids, like, just stick with it, you'll be fine.
Well, Gumball is brilliant, and it gets more and more brilliant as it goes on. But even that show, as good as it is, had a couple of duds.
Yeah.
For me personally, it was the episode in which the kids, the boys at school, tried to see whose mom was the best, and they ended up basically torturing their own mothers for 10 minutes. It was not good. I actually couldn't finish watching it. Otherwise, it's a really brilliant show and you should watch it. But anyway, back to the topic in question.
To the topic in question. It's just an aside that basically, just because I thought it was interesting.
That's not even the real problem with the game, which is to say the game's story, because the story is really two stories. Two separate narratives that don't really converge together in a satisfying or organic manner. Basically, the premise is that this witch with a prosthetic leg by the name of Miss Dronia, which I think it's a reference to Miss Doronio from the Yatterman series, she gets to this isolated backwater town, which is obviously cursed, because there is a mystical, magical, interdimensional labyrinth just down a well.
Okay.
Now, there is a unique gimmick to this because she cannot venture herself inside the well because the miasma is lethal for humans.
Get the bucket!
Get the bucket.
So she sends down animated puppets with a soul to explore the labyrinth, along with a mystical manuscript named Tractatus de Monstrum, which also has a soul in it, and it's technically the main character because you technically play as it. Well, no, you play as the puppets. So essentially the plot is driven forward by expendable extras, not by the protagonist of the story, essentially.
Oh, goody. That's popular.
On one hand, you have the core gameplay element of the game, which is a traditional first-person dungeon crawler. Oh yes, I, Madhog, thy master, am playing a dungeon crawler. So on one hand, you have the puppets exploring the labyrinth and uncovering interesting secrets about it and fascinating civilizations and levels, including basically Lilliput from Gulliver's Travels, or a land of fairies and giant bugs and a caterpillar train, which is really cool.
You had me at fairies.
I'll have your interest now, because the last world I visited is this gigantic, decadent, aristocratic S&M-style brothel filled with demons in tights and monster girls.
Of course that would have Ross's interest.
Yes, it's a legitimately fascinating world. It seems almost like a parody of sorts of Spirited Away. In fact, one boss battle in particular in this world is basically you having to do a foot massage to a giant woman.
I massage those trotty feet.
They are very big feet that will crush you.
I really want to massage a giant woman's feet. A giant woman.
Everything you do in the main menu, which is the caravan of the witch herself, is ultimately aimed at improving your dungeon crawling experience. So you go into the dungeon, you collect mana that you then proceed to spend in better armor or better functionalities to improve your crawling. And then you also, of course, do collect experience points by killing monsters to improve your puppets and all of that. Then you can collect souls and make new puppets. And then there is this gimmick about the Coven, which is mentioned in the title, by which you can have multiple puppets occupying a single character slot. You have 5 character slots essentially, but you can have up to 10 puppets at once if you have the appropriate covens with the appropriate number of slots. There is a variety of covens in that regard. Of course, doing that comes with its own set of problems and drawbacks, so you have to find yourself what is the best way you want to play it. But that's one part of the game. Then there is the other part of the game, which is whatever it is that the witch is doing. Because there is her own plot going on parallel to this. And like I said, they don't merge well together. Every once in a while, once you have explored enough labyrinth, you go back to the base and there is an event unlocked that you can watch. The walkie adventures of Miss Dronia, the visual novel. And that's about it.
Right.
It's addicting, and if Nippon Ichi is good at anything, is making strong core gameplay experiences and everything else around it intriguing and addicting and easy to get into, and it never lets you go. But of course,
what they do.
Yes, that's what they do. They do it really well. Unfortunately, this being Nippon Ichi, you also inevitably have to come face to face with the realization their fanbase has a certain reputation. Which means they have to appeal to all sorts of the lot of them.
Yeah, I've talked over that.
Once you get to see the various available choice of design for the puppets and the classes of puppets you want to use, well, let's just say you will never want to use a certain male version of a certain unit. That's all I'm saying. Ouch.
Yeah.
I especially enjoy the art direction of the enemies as you fight them in the dungeons. They are really quite well drawn. Some would say even too well drawn at some point. I wished that one bug monster in the third dungeon was not as absolutely upsetting as it was. It was called a Numblebee. That's a cute name. And you find yourself face to face with this cosmic horror that just ruined my day. It was legitimately scary.
I can imagine.
Anyway, so that's my experience so far with the game. If you want to know more in a bit of more detail about that, you can follow me on Twitter, where I basically publish all of my, shall we say, findings. I was going to say findings, but that will suffice.
Yeah, escapades. I don't know why I like the word escapades for some reason.
It's a really nice word to say. Escapade. Escapade.
Yeah. Well, from abusive relationships. I have been really into a certain anime as of recent times.
Which is?
I've only watched 2 episodes of this particular anime, so, it's still, early days to say whether it's going to be a good romance story, but it's a lesbian romance story by the name of, let me read the Japanese first here, Yagate Kimi ni Naru, which in English is either Between Bloom Into You or Eventually I Will Become You. I do not know why this is the English title.
That sounds incredibly creepy and concerning.
Yeah, but yet... the
At least it's
anime.
something I want to eat your pancreas.
But, yes, you always bring that up, Ross. But
I can't let it go.
But this is why this baffles me, this English translation, because so far the anime has not shown any signs of concerns of, characters being, awful, I should say. Because despite, the Yuri demographic, or lesbian demographic in Japan
Which is men.
Yes, which is men. And essentially, and women into that sort of thing, of course.
It's mostly made for men. That genre is intrinsically imbued with so much male gaze. It's inescapable.
I know.
Yes.
But I think that's, so obvious it was not meant to be said. But anyway.
And that's why most Yuri shows are extremely rapey.
Yeah, that's why I said this is why the title baffles me a bit, because the fact
I will become you.
because like I said, the demographic likes to over exaggerate or make it over romanticize it.
Melodramatic, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
but yet Yagate Kiminaru does a particular thing that is very surprising to see from this sort of show. And basically, it actually looks at the feelings of the characters involved.
You mean real human feelings and exploration thereof?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow!
There's a character in this called Koito, I should say.
Coitus.
Koito. Basically, she was confessed to by a man recently, but because she is so in love with shoujo manga and all the romance stories that shoujo has shown her.
Shoujo.
Yeah, shoujo, that's what I said.
Shoujo.
That's what I said. Shoujo.
Okay, now you said it.
I did say it.
No,
Anyway.
you said so. Oh, never mind.
Anyway, as I was
It's the
saying,
nuclear controversy all over again.
Anyway, I was saying. So basically, she thinks she has an idea of what she should feel, but essentially, she didn't feel that feeling when she was confessed to, and this confuses her. So essentially, this is what the bulk of the story is so far. It's basically this character wondering when she will feel this feeling, but yet she's wondering if it even exists at all.
It's a slice of life story about a girl discovering her sexuality? Sign me on! Sign me on board! This is interesting. This is compelling.
It is actually. It's strangely, the series is actually strangely down to earth.
Good, I like down to earth in anime. It is so rare to see.
I mean, there are a couple of points like where it feels like it gets visually pretentious with its opening and the and one point where Koito basically
coitus
basically puts her head back to think about everyone's I don't actually forget the context of it, but basically she was thinking about the feelings going involved in love and her classroom filled with shallow water for some reason.
It seems like it is less the anime being pretentious and the character herself being pretentious. There is a difference in that. You want to see the most pretentious shoujo manga or anime ever made? You have to watch that one show that was directed by Hideaki Hanno of Gainax.
Oh boy.
Yes, that one. Ross knows.
Was it Kai Kano?
Yes, I believe that's the title of it.
Also known as His and Her Circumstance.
Yes, it is also the Italian name for it.
And here I thought you were basically going to say Bakemonogatari.
This is how Shaft, the company, the studio Shaft, makes its anime. if we're going to slightly tilt the camera like that, and we see the characters at a grand angle, a Dutch angle, if you will, that's going to make this anime look 1,000 times more important.
By the way, before I continue explaining the rest of the plot, before, we get to the love interest of this particular anime, I want to tell you the studio's name and see if either of you two recognize it.
Okay.
Do either of you know a studio by the name of Troika?
Oh, I've heard that one before, but I could not remember.
Let's see. I'm actually curious because I want to see what other works they did. They've only done Alden Noah Zero, Beautiful Bones, Sakurako's Investigation, Recreators, Idolish 7, and Idolish 7 2, and Idolish 7 Vibrato. So, yeah, they haven't done much from the looks of things. So I was kind of hoping that one of you two might have seen some of the other works, essentially.
No. Quick FYI, I'm just popping over to my other computer. I'll be right back.
Okay, then. I'll just continue on, essentially.
And I'll continue listening.
Yes. So essentially then, as she's having these feelings, she gets roped in to helping out the student council by one of her teachers. And this is yet another aside I'm going to make, essentially, but it's basically me being thankful for a trend that's dying, essentially, when it comes to Yuri and Yaoi romance animations. And that is that the males and the females don't look, they actually look decent to look at rather than just being made to look, ugly for the sake of it, of the audience that they're planning to go with. But yeah, as I was saying, the teacher basically ropes her into helping the student council, and upon being lost trying to find the student council room, which is outside the school grounds somewhere, apparently, basically she bumps into seeing a woman basically calmly saying she was not interested in a guy, and basically turn him down gently.
We all know. It's the feminist agenda!
Basically rejects him gently, essentially. And Koito, essentially, is so enamored with this, seeing how she was able to calmly, tell the person that, just calmly rejects them that she wondered how she could, be like that.
I know. And he knows.
And due to this, she basically asks for advice from this person, who turns out to be the student council president.
Of course she does! What a quinky-dink! I would have never seen that coming.
Yeah. By the way, the student council president, who is also the love interest of this series, is called Namani. She is basically, she seems quite well, let's say, behaved and polite. But she has some of her own interesting quirks about her.
You just described the most stereotypical female president of a school council in existence.
Yeah, she has that, but then she has these, let's say, whims of nature that feel quite human.
Again, that's also part of the package. Oh, apparently Ross is going to have to restart the PC for some reason. He just messaged me about it.
I'll be done soon with this anyway, with this summary. At one point, a conversation was driven where basically they wondered what type of, what kind of person would it take for Namani to say yes to, essentially. And she just says outright that so far no one has made her feel anything special or in particular. And so the two essentially become, let's see, bonded through this shared notion.
Do you think that all of those words were needed to
Not
describe
really.
this? I love you, Devar, but my gosh, nobody is able to just draw on a summarization of a synopsis as much as you do. This reminds me of that one time.
Yeah, Dissidia, I know.
Dissidia.
I feel bad.
We're
about
having
that,
a
so-
Dissidia moment right now, everybody.
Oh, I'm actually kind of glad I just stepped away for that.
Actually, then again, it's not as bad as Dissidia NT. Let me.
No,
put
it is
down.
not. But
still.
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 Okay, so basically these two meet up and they bond over their commonalities and they eventually get together. The end.
Not really get together per se. It's a bit more complicated than that.
Of course it is.
Always is.
But to be honest, the way the anime depicts this relationships feels natural for girls their age. I will say that much.
And then, of course, there is the evil dark twist in which she turns out to be a cannibal who skins people and wears their skin on her. That's why the title is titled I'll Become You.
Again,
Just wear you on.
like I said, I've only watched 2 episodes of this. I'm hooked to it because it's so different from what I usually used to.
Wow,
when
okay,
seeing-
so you spent, what, 10, 20 minutes talking about the first 2 episodes alone?
Nope, only the first episode.
Oh no! Mayday! Mayday!
Don't worry,
Man
don't worry,
overboard!
don't worry.
Abort!
The first episode was the only one I was going to talk about because I think the series is, if you should watch a series that and you're into a romance and Yuri together, this might be the one to look into, essentially. I'm still holding my breath to seeing what could go wrong, sort of thing, because
Yes.
there's always that dread that
Yes.
even some of the best romance stories have their shared problems, essentially.
Yes.
And
Well, that's why there aren't that many good romances.
which pains me because romance is one of my favorites.
Yeah, says the guy who has a fiancé. Boo! Boo!
Don't boo me for that reason.
Boo! Okay, I don't care actually.
Fairies
Good
don't
for you.
typically romance.
Well, of course not, Ross, because you'd rather talk about hentai for about 30 minutes.
Well, in his defense, he was a lot more succinct about his perversions. Now, I want to talk about an anime I am watching because, yes, I watch animes from time to time.
Segway. Is it cells at work?
Yes. So there is a show that hooked me even before I watched it because the premise itself, as simple as it was intriguing to me.
Yeah.
That time I got reincarnated in a slime.
Yes, I actually have watched that as well, actually.
Ross, have you watched that?
I didn't. You cut out when you said the name, so I didn't catch it.
It's the one about the slime.
The
Oh yeah.
reincarnated
So I have
slime.
not watched anything new recently. Part of me is like I should probably give Goblin Slayer a look, and other part of me is like I probably should give that a look as well. And
Well,
then like one of my friends is like Gaga over Rising of the Shield Hero.
The reason why this show appeals to me is actually very simple. It's because I like the idea of a slime being the protagonist of an epic fantasy story. Traditionally, the slime is the level 1 enemy in a given RPG. Thanks to Dragon Quest, it is the most stereotypical RPG encounter, aside from rats. That is. It's either rats or slimes. Sometimes both at the same time.
And rat slimes.
So the idea of a slime being the protagonist of its own show and having its own adventure and hero's journey is very interesting to me, even though it's a very basic subversion as far as those go. I still like it, even though it's immediately bogged down by a couple of questionable gimmicks. First of all, the show is cheating, openly cheating, because the slime in question is, again, as the title says, a human that was reincarnated as a slime.
Yes,
a regular employee from our world whose soul is transferred into a slimy avatar in a fantasy video game world. And already that's a big no-no for me, because I want a true slime. I want the real slime experience.
You want the freaking Dragon Quest slime to go on a quest and about
Basically, yes. Basically,
but
yes.
they've made games about that already.
I don't care about the games. I want a show like
You
that.
want anime adaptation of those games.
No, I don't want specifically the slime from Dragon Quest, because that's a goofy-looking slime. I like the idea that slime is its own entity with its own personality. I like the idea that it has its own sets of powers. I like the idea that it befriends a giant ancient dragon and absorbs it, essentially, and goes on an adventure. And then I love the idea that it becomes the leader of a goblin village, which is another typically not well represented RPG or fantasy race, and it helps them with dire wolves, and then the dire wolves and the goblins get together as a village people. And I enjoy all of that. I enjoy the ride. I enjoy the idea of it. But then there is the second issue that I have with it, which is something that the opening title sequence brought up immediately. The slime is going to have a human form.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's cheating. You are either going to give me a real slime, or don't give me a slime at all. What is this nonsense? Human reincarnated into a slime? Slime becoming human? It's a slime! Let's have a story about a slime being a hero!
I am partially intrigued to see how they're going to give him this transformation, essentially.
I have a theory, and mind you, I did not read the light novels and I don't know what happens next. But considering that the anime established that he can get the form of other creatures by killing and assimilating them...
Yes.
Let's just say I'm curious about that human form, so I guess there is that to look forward. Of course, if it turns out that he can just do that because he really wants to, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most intriguing part about it for me right now. Basically, wondering how he's going to get to that point, essentially. But yeah, I'm actually enjoying the show myself, just because it seems very amusing most of the time. And
it is poorly paced, if I'm being honest, but I am still very much intrigued by it.
The only thing that put me off for a while was how it started, because the fact it confused me for like 5 minutes. Wait, there's a computer woman talking in his head?
Apparently it's the voice of its own skill set.
That's what confuses me slightly.
It's weird.
And, you know, and basically it was like...
Wait, does everyone in that fantasy world have a computer woman voice in their heads telling them what they can do with their skills? Is that how it works?
That's what I kind of don't get, essentially. Why is this character the only one in the entire world who actually mentions this voice in his head?
Maybe it's such a common knowledge between heroes and high-level monsters? I don't know. Honestly, I think the twist is going to be that this was a video game world all along, which isn't really much of a twist because it's obvious from the very beginning. I mean, they even use meta terminologies for video game worlds within the world.
Within the world.
Within the world. I don't know what is it about this that really makes me want to watch it, but damn it, give me my slime show any day.
Well, I have to say that...
Honestly, when I return to Anime Club, I may throw that on to see what it is. Just because we kind of pick one show that we're going to like follow through the season, and since bloody My Hero's off the air, that seems like that would be a decent, probably not super mature thing to look at, because I don't think I'm going to get with Goblin Slayer.
it seems like the powers so far that the slime is getting and
Oh,
all
it's
his friends are getting ridiculous slowly. Like, we're getting to 7 deadly sins territory almost.
yes. Well, actually, that's also another element that inexplicably appeals to me. Because the slime isn't just the main character, and it's not even remotely an underdog. It's actually a pretty powerful boss monster whose own contributions to society improves the lives of all the other monsters. And I like that. It's a different spin to an already different spin on the genre. So not only you have the slime as the protagonist, it is also a really powerful boss monster. But it's funny because it's a slime! It's not supposed to be strong. Although they missed out completely on that joke, because apparently powerful monsters have this aura about them and anybody can feel it, so nobody is going to look at the slime and say, oh, it's a slime, I'm going to totally underestimate it and be completely surprised when it overpowers and kills me. Nobody's really having that moment because the slime is oozing with such power that anyone who's basic enough to sense an aura could realize it's strong.
Didn't he realize, though, that he was sending out this aura and decided to cover it up afterwards?
I do request that we begin wrapping up.
So maybe there is going to be a moment such as that, which would be the whole point of having a slime so powerful to begin with. But yes, Ross is right. I think we have covered enough topics for one podcast, as it were, and we had fun doing it. I most certainly had fun listening to Devar talking, as I always do. And I'm sure you both had fun listening to me talking, as you always do. And then there is Ross too.
Well, I enjoyed hearing Ross talk.
Yes. Well, Ross and his particular interests, that is.
Well, I was more talking about the time we were talking about RPGs like Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross and
oh yes,
Dragonstone,
that was nice. It was nice to reminisce about Chrono Trigger indeed.
I mean, anything that's like, it's just a stark contrast to Dragonsong.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should not have brought Chrono Trigger up before you started playing that particular game.
Yeah, that made it all the worse.
This has been a more impromptu version than usual podcast. Again, I have been Madhog Die Master.
And I've been Devar Run.
And I've been a stupid, depressed fairy named Ross.
Ross Faries, everybody.
Yay, Ross!
Woo!
I don't have a clever or witty way to end this podcast, so I'm just going to end it. See you around in the ether of ever-revolving life. Those are a few words that came out of my mouth. Okay.
Let us all be again reincarnated as slimes.
I prefer not, honestly. I need to be reincarnated as a fairy. Nothing else will do.
I'd be okay.
I already am one, so, it'd just be like, just standard reincarnation, I guess.
Ross, I hope your next existence is going to be a lot less delusional than it is now. Good night, everybody!
Good night.
Take care, buddy.
Coitus.